All right, cool. So Joshua's here today. For those that haven't met, he's our interim product manager, and his camera's not working, so he can't wave to everybody. So, see, run through the agenda. So, as Matthias pointed out, I have some holiday PTO already called out at the top, just because I know I'm traveling on those days, so I threw it out there. But holidays are coming up, so please put your PTO in. Let your managers know all those things. Let's see. Sorry, Joshua's going to rejoin. Let's see, OKRs, I just linked them there. Take a look. They're very similar to last time. So we still have the throughput OKR. There was another OKR for proactive development, so more tooling and balancing out our reactive work. I'll open the board so everyone can see. We are under the enablement section and obviously memory. So we met our hiring goals for Q3 with Nicola and Matthias joining. Thank you. We essentially met our goal for increasing monthly throughput, target 70% on OKRs, and we hit just above 80%. So this last month, I think we hit 40 MRs for the month, and that excludes the onboarding MRs from Nicola and Matthias, but still did great for the month. And then what was the third? Oh, Puma was the third one. So we have Puma out on Canary. We're not there yet on production, so that'll carry over for the next quarter. And actually, that's a very good transition to talk about Puma. So Puma's out on Canary as of Friday, and Andrew had found some latency issues, which were somewhat expected. It's gonna come down to, Camille's typing. There's some other areas where it's found. So pretty unacceptable latency at this point in time. So we're trying to follow along on that issue. There's a lot of discussion about reconfiguring the number of CPUs per thread that we have and trying to balance it out, but there's still some issues and some late breaking stuff that happened this morning. I don't know, Camille, maybe you can get everybody up to speed on what was going on with the metrics endpoint.
Nothing really special. Actually, like we had two things. One is I noticed that we have this metrics endpoint that is very slow, and it actually makes Puma be miserable when we have this metrics endpoint. Everything is implemented to switch that to separate endpoint and not be affected by that. So we should basically try. I mean, production team should try and test that and switch. It should greatly improve the latencies on the Puma. And there was also some regression on the Canary related to recently merged Redis merge request that initially it seemed like it was Puma issue, but it's not Puma issue. It's something that is being reverted now. So we kind of happily run Puma at this moment. It seems that like on the latency, we see something like between 15 to 20% of the duration increase, slightly less on the queuing duration. That's it for now. That's the current state. We happily run. We also started running that on 2 production nodes, 2 out of I think 32 production nodes. So we have some good comparison of the production traffic distribution as well on Puma. That is so like we run on the Canary and on some small percentage of the production fleet today.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason I'm calling this out, most of the testing and configuration, well, all of the testing and configuration right now is on the infrastructure team. But if there's anything that comes back that we need to jump on, we'll have to reprioritize and make sure that's our top priority. So if there's any projects we need to work on, then we'll have to pause on like import or Sidekick, whatever, to help out if it comes back to us. So just letting everybody know on that one. And then eventually, if we get it tuned as best we can, and there's still some latency trade-offs there, it'll probably fall to Joshua to accept the performance trade-offs and make sure that we've documented it properly. So, any questions?
Yeah, I think one of just I'm good in the current state. So thanks, Camille, for working with infrastructure and tracking down the Redis delay and things like that. As far as a path to getting this on by default, do you have a sense, Camille, of how long you'd want to let it sort of run in run full on in production before we make it default to all of our self-managed customers?
I don't know the answer for that. Sorry, I would assume that initial plan was at least like one full milestone to build the confidence within a deployment procedure, but it really depends on a lot of things that are not dependent on us, on how things gonna be like deployed and how they're gonna be running. So I mean, so far like there is no surprises in running, but we also expect that there's gonna be some fine tuning connected. So maybe one milestone gonna be enough. I have no clue really. I can happily try to answer you that question like in 2 weeks from now. When we actually run with some production traffic, we go through a few deployment cycles because like we use a lot of new things. Like we use the new zero deployment procedure. It runs so far great, and it seems the production team is very happy of that change because we don't have to like oversubscribe nodes as we were doing before, and it gives like a lot of flexibility in changing configuration. Like changing configuration right now is basically like running chef reconfigure, and it just happens. There is no interruption to the customers and us. But like today, like we had this issue with the Redis, which was completely auxiliary to Puma. There is still like this metrics endpoint that we should switch and remeasure, because like this metrics endpoint, it's alone can very heavily inflate like the data, the metrics that we see. So at that moment, there is still so many variables, and we are probably like 5 days into running Puma on Canary, and like today on the production. So far, so good actually, I would say, because like we didn't yet have to revert the decision, so it's actually very promising.
Yeah, no, I agree, and so I'm like what I would like to do is just sort of keep an eye on it and sort of think 1 month ahead. So what I would like to do is have in the blog post before the one that goes out with it on by default to just announce that we plan to turn it on by default and to sort of encourage more people to test, because it is available right now, I believe, in Omnibus. And so you can just flip a flag and you're running on with Puma. Whenever we're ready and whatever kind of defaults we land on for as far as like the number of workers versus threads and things like that, would probably be good to just make that announcement and try to get some folks self-managed to just try it.
So from my perspective, and actually like I'm kind of rephrasing Mari's perspective as well, I think that on by default should be with the next major release, because on by default for Puma, it's mostly background change for our customers, but it's not fully background change because we have to update our customers as well on HA documentation and how to perform zero downtime deployments. We are nowhere complete with the documentation of HA and zero downtime deployments yet.
And this is the new and like health check endpoint, right?
So like my plan right now for this week is kind of like establish this as a pattern for every service. So this kind of become I hope kind of like a new way to ensure that like we provide zero downtime deployments. But technically, if we want to upgrade our users by default, they have to also upgrade their HA configuration for the zero downtime deployment, because right now it's kind of like breaking change to the previous unicorn behavior.
And just to make sure I understand, it's the fact that we introduced a different health check endpoint, right? That you want to configure in your load balancer, so that when the nodes are being
Okay, so there is a change. We're gonna be using the same health check endpoint that we have now, but like one side of that, like we should ensure that like we have proper HA documentation, ensuring that like you are configuring this health check endpoint.
Okay, got it.
Because I at least from my perspective, I don't think that like we have comprehensive documentation how to perform zero downtime deployment, because today zero downtime deployment depends on this very quirky behavior of the unicorn that you can reconfigure unicorn and it's gonna gracefully restart while processing the request. And I believe that most of our customers are relying on that, and they are not even using health check endpoint because they are not aware that they should be using health check endpoint in the first place.
Got it. Okay, so we should have that. So it might be good to have that note in the blog post, like for this month's blog post that goes out to say, hey, start using the endpoint. Like we recommend you start using the endpoints and getting that configured, because we'll have Puma, which it'll be more important for, right, and just giving folks more of a heads up to get that configured.
So I think like right now we should be looking take a look again at the Puma documentation on how to configure Puma, and ensure that as part of the documentation there is also like HA section how to configure Puma for HA. And I think that like this is what we should or our like blog posts and customers to that documentation, documenting also how to configure HA.
Okay, yeah, there's something on HA specifically on Puma, so we'll want to add that, but we'll also want to make sure it gets added to the standard, like the standard consolidated HA documentation as well, because that's what people tend to follow. So I'll make an issue and we can discuss outside the call.
So like there is also one architectural change, like this kind of behavior also applies to the unicorn. So like we don't have a difference in the behavior of handling zero downtime after Puma. It's the same behavior is implemented for the unicorn and for Puma. So technically, like we could have a documentation for HA that this is how you should use HA. It should be based on the health check, not on the specific behavior of the application server as it is today. And this does apply today for Puma and for Unicorn as well.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. People should have the health check. Anyways, it's important if the node goes down, for example, you still want to have a health check in place to make sure that gets pulled out of the load balancer, for example, like quickly and stuff. So
yes, because like now if we use this health check, we could then figure out, implement the same mechanism in the workhorse and kind of have a graceful like restart and upgrade of the workhorse as well for basically for free, without doing any major re-architecture or like reconfiguration of user instances if this is needed. So technically, like with the new approach of the using health check, we can actually quite well support zero downtime deployment on more than one node, if more than one node is in the cluster, technically.
Yep. Cool. I'll make an issue. Okay, I think that was my questions on Puma, I think. Thanks.
Cool. And past couple of weeks I've been copying issues over, but I figured this week we'll just look at the milestone board. So does anybody have any topics they want to cover or talk through? Or should we just run through them top down? There's quite a few.
So the first one is mine. I didn't even yet started working on that. I hope that I start in the middle of that week. I'm still focusing on Puma for now.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And for the newer folks, we're halfway through the milestone. It ends on the 17th. So we got about 2 more weeks. So these two are Chinese.
I think the first one, didn't we put this on the backlog, or we said, I think we weren't able to reproduce it. Like we spent a fair amount of time looking into it. Isn't that the one, or was it another one?
Oh,
No,
somebody
it
else
was
owns this one. Yeah. So Igor and his team are working on this one.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's
Matthias. It was another one with the memory.
Yeah.
This,
It was
this,
yeah.
this were actually were able to reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some overlap with the Igor, which is fixing some some part of that.
Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw those MRs. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great.
Should we just close this one since Igor's working on the other one?
I don't know if it's gonna finish all aspects of that because it has problem on so many different angles. This endpoint, and he's right now as part of that. I don't know what is the overlap with that another issue, but he created one merge request for like very specific change for now, for very specific improvement. So someone, I don't know, Chini or you, Matthias, could take a look. And
Yeah, I think Chinyo actually already had a look. I think he actually spent a fair amount of time with this on Friday, because he said he had to go in and first understand how like the merge requests even work and stuff. So I haven't had a look, but I do remember. So we did have a catch-up call with Igor last week, and we came out of this saying it doesn't make sense if we have 4 people look at this simultaneously. So what we came out of the call saying was that Igor, he actually had a pretty good lead on where we might be losing a lot of time right now because there was some inefficient database queries. So he said, why don't you just let me try that first and see how much better it gets, so that we don't like look at multiple things simultaneously and then we can't really correlate like cause and resolution. So yeah, so we said, okay, that sounds great actually, and so I think we want to kind of wait until those changes are live to see how much better it gets, and kind of measure again, and then maybe it's good enough, then we can close this out before we like put more time into this.
Okay, I will move it to the next milestone then and make a note at the bottom. So actually, Chinyu already did. So. All right, so that'll be off the board. Projects. Matthias, you've been working on this one with Chinyu at all?
No. Can you open it quickly? I don't think I've even looked at that one. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I think we asked Grant to reproduce, and he said yes, it's still happening, even on very small.
Okay.
It looks like.
Yeah, I can catch up with Chinyu, see if he needs any help with that.
Okay. And Nicola is catching up with Alexi on this one.
Yeah, they're still working on that.
It's got the NDev label. Okay. Sorry. See, Chinyu just picked up this one, I think yesterday, if I remember correctly. That's mine. That's most likely a database one. I need to go back and review it. This one does not have an assignee on it. It is in this milestone.
I would rather put that right now in the backlog. I don't think that like we have very good solution for that at that moment. How to deal that, because people only add more of these class attributes, and at this moment like we don't have a good approach for that one.
Okay, done. Chinyu is working on this one.
There was a comment from Andrew, like kind of rephrasing like my comment, and the conclusion was that like it's not so important right now that we should spend more time on that, even though it's like quite well defined. So unless we have like more important items, it would be fine to deprioritize that for now.
Okay, move it back. And we'll take Jinju off for now.
We have so many different interesting, like with the Sidekick cluster that we've been discussing with Matthias today, that like technically we could focus on Sidekick clusters and like the wrong behavior of that instead.
Okay. This one is unassigned. Well, I think we can backlog this one too. I think the title is misleading. He wanted, from what I recall, this issue, he wanted an integration into like chat ops.
Does this have a dependency on, I don't think we cannot memory profile Sidekick right now, right? There was this large investigation story that we then also parked because it wasn't quite clear on how that would look like and how we would build that.
Sorry.
So maybe we need to fix that first.
Matthias, can you say again?
So it said in the description here, this is to request Sidekick jobs being profiled right here. That implies running the profile in Sidekick, but we don't have that capability yet. There was another epic, I think, for this even. And we investigated this for a while, and then we put this back in the backlog because we weren't quite sure how to go about that.
Actually, like reading the description, it should be. I mean, it could be even like that, like you use regular request.
Yeah, we could just
as you are doing, but like you have some very simple API to access request profiles that like you have today with admin area.
Yeah.
Page, because this seems like to be equally the same, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would definitely also, make it a bit more digestible if we take Sidekick out of that story for now.
I don't know if we even have to, even if it has to go through Sidekick, it could be like just file a regular request with the profile token, and we just have the API to request this profile based on, I don't know, on the correlation ID, likely.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's an implementation detail. Good point. Can think about it.
I moved it out of this milestone since still even talking about ideas on what to consume and how to consume it, so kicked it out. There's a documentation for Puma. It is not assigned.
So I guess it's like very relevant to what we discussed with Joshua. It seems to be like pretty much what we should be closing.
Yeah, this is an issue which I was just running up. So this is great. I'll just use this one.
Okay. And same for this one here.
Yes, I'm very. I have to like redefine the description, but I'm very close to closing this as well. Because technically, like we have like the one approach that is working, we have to refine that and update documentation.
Okay, we're running a long time here, so. And then Matthias, I think you either called out or spun up a new issue in the chat this morning. You said it's not on the board.
Yeah, we had really interesting and good discussions over the past week or so, generally about Sidekick. So there were a couple of things that came out. This was another one. I think this is also labeled. I think this might be a duplicate of an issue we already had. If you scroll down a little bit, it points to a pretty old issue. No, sorry, not that one, in my comments somewhere further down. Yeah, if you click on this, I think it's pretty much covers the same problem. So yeah, Stan opened this like over a year ago. Yes, so this is something we still should be looking into. And when we talked about this, we were thinking it might be easier to actually go about this if we do a few other things first. One of them was the idea to move this whole Sidekick cluster script into core, or like our basic distribution. And I think this might not be properly tagged because I just created it using an issue template, and I might not have used the right tag. I don't think it's a milestone tag, but that is that I started to look into today. I can send you a link to that.
Okay, I'll make sure it gets on the board. Are you working on it in this milestone or something to look?
Yeah, I've worked on it today. I mean, it's still kind of, yeah, we're like looking into what does that mean. I think it needs a proper breakdown. It needs more grooming. So I don't know if we call that in dev already or if it's still, you know, being prepped. It's not quite ready for dev because like, I don't think we're at a point yet where we like can knock out code, but yeah, we're trying to figure out what we could do about it.
Okay. All right. Well, we are at time. I have another meeting to run to. So thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.